Sweety Candy Vigilante issue number 1. She arrives home back in New York City, walking through the snow as it forms on the ground, with her boobs popping out of her shirt and a necklace that says Sweety right above them. She makes her way to once was her home. She sees fluorescent lights in the window of a bunny and she says, "Yes, the ice cream bunny is here." She walks up to the entrance, licking her lollipop. When she steps in, she is amazed. It is now a strip club. As she looks around, she sees the stripper on the stage shaking her ass. And all of a sudden, a Patreon tries to grab the money out of her thong. The bouncer steps in, and the Patreon pulls a gun. Sweety now is watching all of this as she walks up to the man with the gun, and she asks, "Is he here?" And they are so mesmerized by how stunning she looks as they stare down at her cleavage with a necklace that says Sweety. They're like, "Damn, girl, I'm right here. You smell just like a marshmallow. Can I get you anything from the bar?" Sweety says, "I know that he is not here. He would never let that poor tree look like that." And then she points at the Christmas tree. The bartender doesn't even know who she is talking about. As Sweety asks him, "Is there any specials today? I would like to have one of those homemade ice creams with rainbow sparkles and a cherry on top." The bartender says, "We don't have any ice cream here. You know this is a bar. Do you realize that you're in a bar on planet Earth?" As a Patreon slides over a drink and says, "This is peppermint schnapps. It's just like Christmas. You'll come to like it. Dolls like you drink this up during the holidays, right?" Now Sweety looks at them and says, "I know what a candy cane is. Santa brings you candy canes, but only if you have been very good." "Yes, I got a candy cane." And reaches out his hand and grabs Sweety and pulls her right next to him. He grabs her ass and then he grabs her boobs. And then he points at the bartender and says, "This dumb fuck has no idea what he's talking about. We definitely have bananas here." Sweety now pushes him away and pulls out a pack of Pixie sticks and she pours it down her throat. And the Patreon says, "Damn, girl, what the fuck are you tripping on, bitch?" And he pours the rest of the Pixie sticks on the counter and snorts it. And then his face starts to burn. He is gagging. Blood is pouring out of his eyes as his head slams hard on the floor. His buddy runs over to him and says, "Hey man, get up." And as they grab him, his face is melting off of his head. It is totally detached from his shoulders. His around and it splashes right in front of Pixie, the dancer. And Sweety is standing there just smiling. As one of his friends pulls out a gun and says, "What the fuck? That is some crazy shit, bitch." And as she opens up another Pixie sticks, she pours half of it down her throat. And then she pulls her glasses down, and her eyes are now in a hypnotic state. She opens up her mouth, and now she has fangs. And then she blows the rest of the pixie dust on the gun, and it starts to melt. And it goes into his hand, and it starts to melt his hand off. She leans over to him and says, "If you know you've been good or bad, so you better be good for goodness sake." That is right when he looks up at Sweety and says, "You fucking crazy ass bitch. I'm gonna fucking kill you." Sweety now pulls out a piece of bubble gum and she starts to chew it. And then she blows a big old bubble and it pops and it goes all over his face. and his face starts to melt down to the ground. And now Sweetie puts on her glasses and says, now he wasn't very nice at all. Sweetie now turns to the last two employees in the bar, Pixie, the dancer, and the bartender, and she says, so the ice cream bunny isn't here. Well, he is a friend of mine, and when he comes back, tell him that I have been looking for him. Pixie now looks at Sweetie and says, yes, I will for the rest of my life. And Sweetie looks back at her and says, I will be back. And when I come back to this place, you will make sure it is worthy for the ice cream bunny to return. Do you understand me? And they both look at her and say, yes, we will be good. Now Pixie looks at Sweetie and says, I think I love you. Sweetie now walks over to Pixie and grabs her arm, and she holds it out, and she lifts up her hand, and there's a ring that is blinging with light, and she slams it down on Pixie's forearm, and it brands her. And when she pulls it away, there is a heart that says, Sweetie. Now, as Sweetie is walking out of the bar, one of the Patreons is filming her with his phone. And she notices this, and she turns around and looks at him. And then she pulls out a long string of licorice, and she swings it around like a lasso over her head. And then she wraps it around his neck and then pulls it really fast, and then she grabs his phone and deletes the video. And now she turns around and she goes to the Christmas tree. She says, oh, my little friend, I have such a sweet tooth for my little frosty pine cone. I am rolling so hard, and now she bites hard on the wire, and the Christmas lights, they turn super fluorescent and bright. The Christmas tree comes alive, and Sweetie and the tree hug each other, and she says, you are looking like a boss. And all of a sudden, a giant gummy bear comes alive, and Sweetie says, don't let him scare you. He's just a big old teddy bear. But it's the gummy shark that you have to worry about. And they start laughing. Sweetie says, there are no bad eggs in this place. It is dirty. Now clean it up. And we will be back to check on you too. Now listen to your new boss. And she points at the Christmas tree. And as they walk out of the bar, she is shaking her fine ass. Pixie and the bartender stare in wonder as the full moon shines bright in the sky with snow coming down. End of chapter 1. So tell me what you think about issue 1 of Sweetie Candy Vigilante, and volume 2 is getting ready to come out, and I'm doing the whole recap of volume 1, and that was chapter 1. And don't worry, they're already done, so they will get put out before volume 2. Just make sure you subscribe and hit that bell so you're notified when the next chapter of this series comes out. And now you guys remember, you keep it hardcore comics.